Today on Math Hacks, I am showing you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to simplify square roots. So roll up your sleeves, grab a pencil and paper, because we are solving 5 problems in 5 minutes. Now the fastest way to simplify square roots is always to look for perfect square factors of your number. So we're looking at this square root of 45 here, and the first thing that I notice is that 9 is a factor of 45. So to begin, we're going to split 45 into its 2 factors, which is 9 times 5. Okay. Now, something handy you can do is you can rewrite this as 2 separate roots. So this is the same as the square root of 9 times the square root of 5. Now once you see this, you may realize that the square root of 9 is 3, and because 5 is prime, we can't take the square root of it and get a whole number, so we're just going to leave it as square root 5. Alright, and before you know it, there you go, you've simplified square root 45 into 3 square root 5. Now let's take a trickier number. How about something larger like the square root of 216? Now this number, it may not be as obvious what factors it has and if any of those factors are perfect squares. So you could do some guess and check here and try to see if the perfect squares go into it, but I want to show you a technique that is really quick and simple. And what you're going to do here is you're going to use a factor tree. Now we've got the complete prime factorization here, so you could think of this as 2 cubed times 3 cubed, because we have 3 2's that'll multiply together and 3 3's that'll multiply together to get 216. One little trick you can do here is because we are looking for the square root, I'm actually going to, instead of writing it as 2 cubed, I'm going to write it as 2 squared times 2. 2 to the first, but I don't have to write the 1. And I'm going to do the same thing with 3. I'm going to write it as 3 squared times 3. Now that looks a little bit funny, but it's actually going to make it really easy when we go back over to the square roots. And just like in our first example here, we can go ahead and split this into separate roots. Now, 2 squared and 3 squared we can simplify. They become 2 and 3. Okay. And our last step now is to go ahead and multiply like terms together. So that means 2 times 3 here is going to get multiplied together, and then the square root of 2 and the square root of 3 can be multiplied together. When I do that, I get 6 square root 6. Once again, I'm going to break 28 into 2 convenient factors. I know that 7 times 4 is 28, and because 4 is a perfect square, that is a great set of factors to simplify 28 into. Once again, we can break these into 2 separate roots. Now I notice that I have 2 7's here, so I'm actually going to combine those back into one square root. Conveniently, both of these can be simplified, and we get 7 times 2. And let's go ahead and multiply those together. So the answer to this one is 14. Now for this example, the quickest way to get started here is to rewrite this as 1 square root. So whenever you're working with multiplication or division, you can choose to separate the square root or put it together. So this is the same as the square root of 72 divided by 2. This is really handy because if I divide 72 by 2, I get the square root of 36. And the square root of 36 is, of course, 6. Our first step is to split it into convenient factors, just like we've been doing. Next, I can choose to split all of these values into separate square roots. I'm going to take the square root of whatever I can. There we go. So our square root of 18 over 25 becomes 3 square root 2 over 5. I hope that gave you a good feel for the different types of techniques you can use to simplify square roots. Remember that there is no one size fits all. Some techniques just work better with certain numbers than others. But they basically all boil down to the same idea. You're looking for those hidden perfect squares, and when you find them, you can reduce by them. If you'd like notes on today's lesson, head on over to the Math Hacks blog where I've got some extra problems and printables there for you. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so that you can find the tutorials you want when you need them. Until next time, I'm Brett Berry and this has been Math Hacks.